Persona 3's Yukari Takeba has gained notoriety, but not for the reason you may initially think. While she does have a lot of fans that will fall at her feet and be her loyal servant, others simply detest the character. And speaking of detest, it's time for That's Right, faithful viewer. You guessed it, the YouTuber reminding you to like the video, comment on it for the algorithm, and subscribe to support the channel, which does mean the world to me. Anyway, what makes Yukari so controversial? It's hard for some to believe that some Japanese high schooler that's going through life would spark any amount of controversy at all. She has nothing going for her like Persona 4's Kanji Tatsumi or Naoto Shirogane, but for some reason she still has gained this title. In order to be able to understand this, we first must take a look into how she is depicted within Persona 3. Yukari's first appearance in the title depicts her holding an evoker to her head, evoking the notion that she is going to commit suicide until she eventually drops the weapon during the opening cutscene. Later, when the protagonist arrives at the dorm, during the dark hour, she encounters him with Mitsuru, and is cautious of him during the initial introduction conversation. After the greeting process is over, she shows him to his room and wishes him a good night. The following day, Yukari escorts her fellow junior to Gekugan High School. The protagonist then finds out not only are they in the same class, but also that Yukari is a popular student at school due to her overall cheery disposition. However, she is also very cautious of others. Once the two make it to class, they meet up with her childhood classmate, Junpei Iori. And it's in this classroom where we get one of the most classic lines in the entire franchise.
This is a tough case, even for Junpei Iori, ace detective.
Ace detective? More like Stupe ace defective.
Throughout the game, Yukari tends to hide her true motives from the rest of 3's, and her mood swings are quite frequent. At the start, she is jealous of 3's leader Mitsuru Kirijo, due to her attitude and conflict that came from their fathers. She is also initially unhappy with Fuka Yamagishi joining the team due to believing that she had little choice in the matter, but this soon changes and the girls become friends. Despite initially being harsh on her 3's peers, she expresses a great deal of concern for their well-being, as she does truly care about them. She is also the one member who has the most difficulty summoning her persona at the beginning due to having to mimic the act of suicide with her evoker. While she and the others are vacationing at Yakushima, Yukari uncovers her father's role in the Kirijo group's shadow experimentation. After this discovery, guilt begins to consume Yukari, leading her to become more distant from the other members of 3's. Learning about her father's supposed involvement in the creation of the Dark Hour and Tartarus causes her to have an emotional breakdown. We also learn more about Yukari's deceased father, Ichiro Takeba, as the game progresses. While he was working for the Kirijo group, an event known as the Fall, or simply the End, which the group was working towards, was disapproved by Ichiro. This disapproval caused him to be killed by Mitsuru's grandfather, and thus created the problem that 3's has to face in Persona 3. This event not only caused great pain for Yukari, but also her mother, Isako Takeba. Isako dealt with the pain from the loss of her husband by dating numerous men who mistreated her, and this desperate attempt from her to try and connect with another man again caused her to essentially abandon her daughter. Eventually, Yukari and her mother had to move away as the backlash of blame for Ichiro being held responsible for the deaths of many Kirijo group researchers, as he was in charge of the research team, even though the details of Ichiro's role were not entirely clear, and there were all sorts of rumors. After the move, Yukari ends up alone, and coupled with the distress of losing her father, caused her to become quite introverted, which aids her in connecting with the protagonist, as he has also prematurely lost a parent. We also learned that when Yukari enrolled at Gekugan High School, she finally received the letter her father wrote 10 years ago. The letter expressed his love for his daughter, as well as his wishes, and this causes her to join 3's. She joined 3's prior to the protagonist's arrival for the reason of cooperating with the Kirijo group in order to find some truth and information about her father, including the reason for his death. So now that we know her story, what about this makes her so controversial? There are multiple factors that could lead to this controversial title, and one of the reasons you'd think of first is how she is depicted. We are aware that Yukari has been through a lot during her childhood. She lost her father, her mother abandoned her for strange men, and she had to make do facing the rumors that were spreading about her father, which would certainly result in trauma. However, there are just some strange things about it. I find it very strange that even though she is dealing with this, she is extremely popular at Gekukan High with the students, but not only that, her attitude is quite snarky. These things aren't generally associated with people who have been through trauma quite like hers, which may have ultimately caused some people to simply dislike the character. But this is only the surface layer, as if you dig a little deeper, you can find more answers. Yukari's character deals with something that was still pretty taboo to talk about at the time, which is mental health issues. As a lot of us are becoming more aware, mental health issues have often been disregarded in the past, as it was generally an unaccepted thing to talk about in our past society. Of course, this is changing in the modern era, but it's still not perfect, and Yukari's character is a prime suspect of someone who is struggling very much with her mental health. I believe that Yukari possesses post-traumatic stress disorder, which is also known as PTSD. PTSD is a mental and behavioral disorder which is characterized by failure to recover after experiencing or witnessing a terrifying event. This condition can last from months to years, with triggers that can bring back memories of the trauma, accompanied by intense emotional and physical reactions. In order to hide this, Yukari masks her pain away behind a superficial attitude of a happy-go-lucky character, which ultimately causes her school popularity. Not being able to deal with the trauma properly, she lashes out on the people closest to her frequently, which are the members of 3's, which ultimately causes tension between her and the others. She tries her best to be strong despite what she has been through, and opens up to the protagonist through her social link, and this allows her to begin the healing process. For 2006, this story was quite intense, and something that wasn't particularly present in media. It caused rifts between players. Some simply didn't understand the point of her character, while others decided that her story was too much for them to deal with. But some also thought that her story was evolutionary, and I have to agree with this. The depiction of Yukari is quite accurate for some people who have to deal with trauma similar to hers, and was a massive step forward for people who have to deal with mental health issues, as they had something that they could potentially relate to. Yukari shows us that life for some simply isn't pretty. It's gruesome, painful, and akin to hell on earth, which I believe should allow not only for relation, but for more empathy towards people who also possess burdens in their lives. To tell a story like that in 2006 is something I really commend Atlus for, despite the controversy over the character. And I hope that the story continues to make a mark on people for years to come.